Welcome to the video for the mat050 final exam review sheet, page 1. So, question 1, one of the important questions for the test. Survey of 73 students found that 20 use an iPod for music listening, but it doesn't say they only use an iPod. 32 use their cell phone, but it doesn't say they only use their cell phone. And 18 use both. So question B, I'm going to do question B and C. That will actually help me do question A. So question B and C. Question B, how many students liked only using an iPod? We know that 20 students use an iPod, but 18 of those also use a cell phone. So the ones that only use an iPod are 2. And question C, how many didn't use either? I'll come back to question C in a moment. So first of all, I'll go back to A, and I will label the diagram. These are the students that use the iPod, this circle, and this circle is the students that use the cell phone. Just going to put CP. And we know that the ones that only use the iPod are 2. Not 20, there are 2. And we know it specifically says there are 18 that use both. And this part of the circle is for the students that use both. So we know there are 18 there. And likewise, for the ones who just use the cell phone, there are 32 students who use the cell phone, but 18 of those also use the iPod. So we do 32 minus 18, which equals 14. So we know there are 14 students who only use the cell phone. And we notice in the Venn diagram, you can only be one place. If you use both, you have to be in the overlap between the two circles. If you use just the iPod, you have to be in this circle. And if you use just the cell phone, you have to be in this circle. So we can now kind of approach this, approach our answer to question C. So how many students didn't use either? So I'm going to start with the 73 students. And I know that 2 of them just use the iPod. 20 of them use the iPod, but 18 of them use both. And I'm going to count that separately. So I'm going to put those 18 there. And 14 use just the cell phone. So I can say minus 14. And it's important that I understand that each of these 14 people, each of the 18 people, each of the 2 people are not counted anywhere else. So I do 53 minus 14, which equals 39. So there are 39 students that don't use either. And I'm going to put that in this part of the Venn diagram. I need to label every space on the Venn diagram. I need to put a number there. And the space in the rectangle outside the circles is for people that use neither. Take a quick look at question 2. Pause the video for a moment. See if you can answer question 2. When you think you have an answer, come back to the video and see if you agree with mine. Okay, thank you for coming back. We've got a bar graph. And they show us the bar graph in the advertisement. And we've blown up the bar graph and changed the scale. So we want to use that bar graph to draw some conclusions about the advertisement. First of all, estimate the average time to exhaustion using ThermoBuster and using the placebo. So we notice here it says time to exhaustion. And we have a bar for thermograph. which ends up being between 40 and 45. It is closer to 40, so I'm going to say 42 because 42 is closer to 40 than 45. If we look at the placebo, it is between 35 and 40, and I'm going to call that 37 because it is closer to the 35 than it is to the 40. And then question B, do you think there's a big difference between the average for these? Do you think there's a big difference between these average times to exhaustion for thermoburst and the placebo? Placebo is just something that is known to have no effect. It's just given to people to make them think that they will do better. So they're comparing thermoburst to people just believing that they'll do better. So explain the difference. Is there a big difference? And explain your reasoning. Your answer is not as important as explaining your reasoning. You can, whether there's a big difference or not is a matter of opinion. But I can see there's a very small difference between the two from what I've seen or from what I've drawn on the graph. There's a very small difference. It looks like a bigger difference on the ad in the on the graph in the ad, but I'm going to say there's a very small difference. And I'm going to say that's because I can see from the bars that the placebo is almost as big. The difference between the two is much smaller than the height of the bars themselves. So the difference is very small, in my opinion. There again, it's the explanation, and I didn't write the explanation because I don't have time. The last one, though, why would Thermoburst use the graph in the advertisement instead of the one on the right? Explain your reasoning. I'm going to say they would use it because it appears that the product gives you a much higher time to exhaustion. Than is actually the case. And that's the end of the video for page 1. Go ahead and look at page 2 and open that video when you want or when you're ready.